Shalom. Halloween and Parshat Vayera. Well, it turns out that every year, right around Halloween time, we read in the Torah Parshat Vayera, which is most famous because of chapters 21 and 22 of Genesis, which are read on the first 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. But the rest of the Parsha has some very important and fascinating stories and lessons for us, including chapter 18, where the Parsha opens with 3 men coming to visit Abraham. Now, there's 2 important facets of this. The first is that Abraham, it says, is sitting in the door of his tent in the heat of the day. Now, every Bedouin knows you sit in the middle of your tent in the heat of the day. It's cooler there. Why is he sitting in the door of his tent? Well, according to Jewish tradition, it was to fulfill the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, of welcoming guests. He's looking for people to provide hospitality, like any good Bedouin. Teaches us the mitzvah of hospitality to guests. Now, the other piece, which is more Halloweenish, is these 3 trick-or-treaters. Now, why do I say trick-or-treaters? Because they're angels dressed as men. Now, according to the Talmud, each angel has one job to do. So what are the jobs for these 3 angels? Angel number 1 came to tell Abraham and Sarah they're going to have a baby. Now, they are very skeptical. Sarah says she's too old, and then she says that Abraham's too old. Which of course gives rise to another very significant lesson, that it's okay sometimes to tell little white lies to keep the peace. Because when Abraham asks God what Sarah said, God says she said she's too old. Neglected the part about she saying that he was too old, because he wanted to keep peace, God did, between Sarah and Abraham. But in any case, she comes to tell them, and they're skeptical. So how did God convince them? Now, was it just a simple miracle? God said, I don't care, you're skeptical. We know the story sometimes about people who can't have a child, and then they adopt one, for example, and have natural children, or something happens where, and now of course that's not all the issue with infertility, and sadly some people can never have children, but we do know about that phenomenon. Well, something happens to Abraham and Sarah, even though they're old and in their own minds they can't have children, to be able to have children. To have a son, Isaac. And I read this interesting little sermonette in a book. It said that what God did was basically change their names, which is what happens in the text. Sarai becomes Sarah, which means princess, and Avram becomes Abraham, father of nations. And so they kept hearing the names princess and father of nations, and they kept hearing the name until they internalized it. They changed their understanding of themselves. They had to make their words speak for them. They had to understand, to change their self-image to be able to accomplish this goal. I think it's a beautiful little lesson. Angel number 2 comes to tell Abraham about Sodom and how evil the city is and how it needs to be destroyed. And in this day and age, when we're facing an onslaught of worldwide terrorism from radical Islam, not all Muslims, but the 10% or so that are bound to destroy the West, destroy Israel, kill Jews, sermons you hear in mosques are heard in mosques all the time. Real evil has to be fought. There is real evil in the world. We wish there wasn't, but there is. And that's why we need police and armies. We have to maintain strength. It says at the end of Psalm 29, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivorech amo b'shalom. May God bless us with strength, and may God bless us with peace. And so those are 2 of the angels of the 3. So what is the function of angel number 3? Angel number 3 comes for the purpose, and according to the tradition, actually it's the first angel. He comes to offer healing to Abraham. Why healing? Because Abraham had just circumcised himself at the end of the last chapter. He's over 90 years old. He's in deep pain. And so the messenger comes to offer him bikur cholim. Now, the Torah has no mitzvah specifying hachmasot orchim, welcoming guests, or bikur cholim, providing hospitality to guests, or bikur cholim, visiting the sick, or nichum avelim, comforting the dead. But these are things we learn from God. We learn from God to follow God's ways. And so by God sending this angel to comfort Abraham, we learn about the importance of us doing the mitzvah of bikur cholim. So 3 important lessons from these 3 angels, just in time for Halloween, trick-or-treating their way through life to provide very important basic ideas of civilization.